Hello everyone. So in this video we are going to discuss about few questions based on the OOPS concept, and this is very important topic if you look at phase 1 and phase 2 point of view. In phase 2 also they have specifically mentioned the OOPS concept, right? And it has a different weightage also, right? So very important topic if you look at entire SEBI graded IT officer exam. Okay. So if you're preparing for SEBI graded IT officer exam, you can check out my course, test series, and the notes as well. You can download the notes, you can take out the printout, and you can just refer to that. Okay. So let's try to solve few questions based on the OOPS concept here. This is question number one. What will be the output of the following Python code? So you can expect this type of question. They will give the Python code, and you can expect, and you need to find out the output of that particular code, or there will be some missing lines in that. You have to fill that, or it is possible that this code consists of error. So you have to debug that particular code, right? So based on that, also you can expect a question. So let's try to solve few question here. So we are so here you can see we have one class. So we have created one class that is basically a student, and then here you can see we have defined a constructor. So you can see init is basically a constructor. It will consist of self. Then we have name, and here self dot name equals to name here. So I hope you are aware about the class and the object concept here. So here we have defined the class that is basically a student here. Now if you look at here S1, S1 equals to student. So this S1 belongs to a class student here. Now what is S1 here? S1 is basically object. So here S1 is basically a object which belongs to class student here, right? Students. Now, what are the properties of this, or we can attribute it is going to follow? Now, student in bracket we have specified Rohan. But if you observe the class student here, what this init function will does? So whenever we are going to create the object, at that time this particular function is going to get executed. So this init constructor will execute automatically when we create the object. Okay. So you can see here self is basically what object we have created, that is basically self here. So S1 will be there, and corresponding value we have taken the, and the name we have taken as input here, that is basically a Rohan, right? It means what? Right? It means what? You can see S1 dot name equals to this particular name, that is basically a Rohan here. So at this particular point of time, S1 dot name is basically Rohan. So S1 is an object belong to a class student, and when we create this object, automatically this constructor init will get executed. And here self means what? That particular object name, and here name is basically what parameters we have passed into this particular student class here. Okay, so you can see now this S1 will have S1 dot name equals to Rohan. Now what we are doing at this particular line, S2 equals to S1 here. The S2 equals to S1. What is S1? Object belong to a class student. So now this S2 and S1 is basically equal. It means what? Both are the same object here. So S2 is referring to S1 only. So both are the same object here. Now what we are going to do? S2 dot name here. S2 dot name is equals to Sohan. So previously, if you observe S1 dot name, so if at this particular point, if I simply say print S1 dot name, then the output will be what? Rohan here. But what we have done at this particular line, S2 equals to S1, which all the properties of this particular object now belong to this particular object as well. That is basically S2. Now if I say S2 dot name equals to Sohan, it means what? This particular attribute name in S1 gets overwrite here. So basically S2 or S1, same thing here, right? So S1 dot name will also be a Sohan here. So if I print at this particular line, S1 dot name will be what? Sohan. So option 2 is correct here. Okay. So I hope you understand the concept of object and class. Okay. So simple question you can expect in your phase 1 exam. In the case of phase 2 exam, you can expect one more class or one more object, and then you can expect similar type of question there as well. Okay. So very important topic, entire SEBI exam point of view. Okay. Let's try to solve this particular question. Question number 2. What will be the output of following Python code? So again, we have a Python code. You can see. So we have two class here now. Class A, class B. In bracket, we have specified A. So what does this mean? Okay. So in the previous question, we just have one class that is basically a student, right? Now what about this class A? So we have created one class that is basically A, In that particular class, we have a function show that is basically self here. So we are going to print a. So whenever we are going to call this particular function show, it is going to print a here for that particular class A. What we have done here, class B. So we are creating new class B, but in bracket we have put A. So what is this? So this is basically what inheritance in oops concept here. So if I say class, then we have a parent class here. Let's say for example parent class, and here we have few functions, few properties we can say. Then we create a class, let's say for example child here. Now, if I want this particular class to take the property of this parent class here, how I can do that? In bracket, we have to specify that particular class from which we want to take the property, from which class we will get the inheritance property here, right? That is what a parent class, that is what a child class here. So this is basically a child class and the parent class is basically A here. So all the properties of A will be now is part of B here. We can say like that. Okay. And now what we are doing in class B. In class B also we have same function here and we are going to call print B here. Okay, let's see what we are doing now. Object equals to A. Simple, we have created one particular object which belongs to class A here. So if you observe, A is basically empty here. We have not passed any parameters because this is not going to take any parameters here. We don't have any constructor that is in it here in this particular case. In the previous case, there was a constructor, so automatically this will get executed and it requires some input as a parameter here. So that's why we have given the parameter as an input. If I simply put a bracket here, then it will throw an error because name will be required in that particular case. Okay, so I hope you understand the difference here. Now if you look at here, object equals to A. So we have created object which belongs to class A. What about this object now? Now this object is belong to class B. So this is what we have done. Object which belongs to class A. Now it gets override by the object which belongs to class B now. Now this object will have all the properties of B, not of A. But if you look at B is also a child class, it will inherit the property of class A, right? So what this will happen now? So if I call object, so this particular object dot show, so which function will get executed? So if you observe, this object belongs to class B. Now if I go to this particular class B here, what will happen? So this particular function is going to get called show and we are going to print B here. So here the output will be B. Option number 2 is correct here. Here this will not get printed because we have just defined the parent and child class here, but we have not defined the super function here. So super function, and if I initialize with the init constructor here, so if I specify super dot underscore init underscore like that, in that case automatically the properties of this class will also get a part of this class B when we create the object here belong to that particular class. Okay, so I hope you understand this particular case. Here we have not specified that we are going to take the property of this particular class. Here we have just simply specified what. So this is a child class and belong to a what? Class A. This is what only we have defined, but we have not mentioned anywhere about the properties of class A, which property is going to take. Okay, so that's why option B is correct here. We'll solve more questions based on this particular inheritance property, so that will be much clearer to you. Now, what about this particular question? Same question, similar kind of question here. We have a class engine, so we have a constructor here init function. So whenever we are going to create a object using this particular class engine, this function will automatically get executed. Now what about the class car here? So again we are creating a different class that is basically car, and here we have a constructor. So this will get executed when we create an object using this particular class here. Okay, let's see what we have done. We have E equals to engine. So this object E belongs to a class engine. Okay, now you can see when we call this particular function, this will get executed here. Sorry, when we call this particular class, when we create this particular object here, so this will get executed here. It means what? Self is basically E. So E dot status is equals to off. So at this particular point, E dot status is equals to off here. Okay, let's see. Then we have C1 equals to car E. Now let's see what we have done. We have created new object C1, but it belongs to a class car. And what is the input here? E. What is E? This entire object we can say. And here you can see this will be the object here because If I create the object by using car class here, so this will get executed. Here that will be a C1, here that will be a parameters E. Now what does this mean? C1 dot engine equals to this particular thing here. Okay. Now at this particular point, what will happen? C2 equals to car E. Same thing here. C2 dot this particular engine will be this E here, right? Now what we are going to do at this particular point? C1 dot engine dot status is equals to on. C1 is basically belong to a class car. Engine dot status equals to on. So if I look at here, what we have done is basically what? E dot status is equals to off. So this will get override. So it will get updated. Now I can say C1 dot engine dot status equals to on. Even if I call this particular thing here, that is E here, then if I say E, basically E dot status will be what? That will be on here because we have updated that particular status now. Now what happens at line number this one? We are printing C2.engine.status here. What is C2? C2 is basically again that engine.status. What is the value of this engine.status? That will get printed here. But already if you observe, E is basically this engine class, right? And the status is basically what got updated in the previous line, that is basically on here. So now we can see the correct option for this particular question is basically what? Option 2 here. So this will be on as well, because at this particular line, this engine dot status is equals to off is got replaced by on here. It got updated by this particular line here. Okay, that's why option 2 is correct. I hope you understood how it overrides the properties of class and object here. Okay, let's try to solve next question. Now, up till now, we have discussed three questions which based on the output of the code here. Now, here we need to fix the code so that it prints hello. Okay, so choose the correction to fix the code so it prints hello here. So, again, we have a one class that is basically a greeter. So, we are defining one function, message self, then print hello. Okay, if you observe here, this init function is basically what? Constructor here. And when we define any function inside the class, that is basically called as methods. These are the methods. So whenever you define any function inside the class, that is basically a method. It's a function only, but we'll name it as method. Okay. Now here we have defined the class greeter, and here we have defined one function message, which will take the object as an input and it is going to print hello here. I hope this is clear. Now missing code, we need to fill the code. Now we are printing this one d.msg. Here we have empty bracket. We are calling the function msg here, and the output of this must be hello. Output of this must be hello. This is what given in the question. We need to fix the code here, right? Now, when this particular will print hello, now here we are calling the function message. Okay, the output of this message is basically print hello, right? This is fine. But what about G? What is G here? So from G, where this G will take this particular property of this particular function. So here we have defined the function in the greeter class. It means what? G will be the object of this particular greeter class here. You can see. Okay. So this will be a correct here. So option 2 will be correct here. We don't create the object like this. Okay. So here that bracket must be present. In the case of class, bracket present or absent both are fine. Okay. So we can deal with both the cases here. Both are fine. But while creating an object, we have to specify bracket like this. So option B is correct, not A. Here greeter dot G equals to greeter. No. G equals to greeter dot message. No. Here G equals to greeter dot message. No. First we have to create the object and then we can call the function here. While creation of object, only init function can execute automatically. That's why it's a constructor init here. Okay. I hope you understand the difference now. Good. Let's try to solve next question here. Spot the error when running this code. So now we have to spot the error in this particular code. Let's see. We have a class that is basically point. We have defined this particular function here, init function. It means what? Whenever we are going to create object using this particular class point, it will get executed here, right? Now we are creating one object p equals to point 1. Okay. Now what is this 1 here? So here if you see, this is going to call this particular function. then it is going to take three input here, self, x and y. Self is basically what? The object name itself, that is basically a p. Now here we have two parameters for the input, and here we have to specify one here. It means what? One parameter is missing here, that is y, right? So this will throw an error. Which type of error? Let's see the options. No error, print one and none, no. Option 2, type error. Yes, this particular function is missing one required position argument. This argument is missing here, right? So option 2 is correct. Name error, point not defined? No. So name error will occur, let's say for example, we are saying C equals to A plus B, but we are printing D here, where D is not defined. In that case, name error can occur, right? Like that. Type error, you can see we have something called, let's say for example, integer as an input in the function, but we are giving string as an input. That is basically a type error, we can say. Okay, so option 3 is not correct. Option 2 is correct here because this is a missing one argument, right? Option 4, index error due to single argument. No. Print 1 0. No. Okay, so here you can see we have not defined any default value to this particular parameters. So if I say x equals to none and y equals to none as well, in that case it will not throw an error. In that case what will happen? Self will be p, x will be a 1 and y will be a none. So if I print this one, so 1 and none will be the output here. So option A will be correct in that particular case. But here we have not set any default value here. So kindly remember, if I just put x equals to none, y equals to none, it means what? If the values are not present while creating the object, so that will take the default value here. It can be anything. It can be none, it can be 2, it can be 3, any value, but we have to specify inside the function here. Okay. I hope you understand this particular thing. So that's why option 2 is correct. So that's it from this particular video. I hope you understand what we have discussed here. Very important concept if you see SEBI grade A exam point of view. Okay, so kindly go through all the questions. I already added around 4 tests, and each test is having 10 questions. So you can see 40 questions like this for practice as a part of our test series. So please check out our test series here. Okay, so that's it from my side. Thank you.